Oh my God, 2 minutes late. How dare I? Sorry about that. I see a lot of people have already chimed in. Thanks for that. I'm double live for just a few minutes here. I got Instagram going, live on Instagram, just to tell you guys that I'm on YouTube right now. If you want to join in, do some chat questions, live Q&A, go to the bio in my link on my Instagram bio page and join us over here. But I'll let this go for just a couple more minutes. How you guys doing? I almost was going to do this from Riot House Studio today. That's a studio that I record at. I keep a kit there. I've been doing recording sessions, but I got going late today. I did something last night that made my night just go way too long. I parked in Hollywood. You know, I went to see a show. I saw John 5 at the Whiskey. He was amazing. The show was amazing. He had guests like Corey Taylor from Slipknot, got up and did 3 Van Halen songs with Michael Anthony on bass as a special surprise guest. My buddy Fred Coury, drummer from Cinderella, he was a special guest. He got up and jammed with them. Great show. Everybody was there. One of those Hollywood nights, Sunset Strip. Went to the Rainbow afterwards. What did I forget? That the place I parked at on Sunset was just this little tiny parking area. The guy said he closes at 1:30 a.m. Like the gate closes. I totally spaced out on that, so my car got trapped. So I got to go back there today and get my car. I was able to get a ride home from somebody last night, but I think I'll have to Uber my way to North Hollywood today for a recording session and then get somebody to ride me over to right near the Whiskey there and get my car. How could I do such a stupid thing? Have you guys done that? Have you ever been out in Hollywood and then your car gets trapped because it's too late by the time you get back to the parking lot? Well, I did it. What's going on here? Let's see. We got a lot of people chiming in. How you guys doing? Let's see. James Ingram. Hi, Glenn. Messaged you a while back about my drummer-themed MS Sticks and Sign fundraiser in Manchester. Are you back here soon to spare me 10 minutes? That's from John McLaughlin, not the guitar player John McLaughlin, I assume. But yeah, I think we are doing a show in Manchester, UK this year with Alice. We do have UK dates coming in September, October, somewhere around there. So we've done Manchester a lot. Manchester Arena, great place. And Joe Schwartz, what's up? Kevin Rankin, how you guys doing? Some good buddies joining in. And let's see. Let me scroll down a bit. Kevin, had the same thing happen at Lucky Strike when you were in town. Rental car. Oh, you had a rental car trap. Man, John 5's drummer is a guy I just met last night. He is named Logan Nix, I believe, Nix. Great. The band was tight, and they were able to cover a lot of ground stylistically. It was very cool. Bass was Ian Ross. He's been playing with John for a good while now. So, yeah, I've been recording a lot at Riot House Studio, like I mentioned before. It's a great room. I keep a kit there now. It's a big drum room. So we're able to put overhead mics 10, 20 feet away, get a nice big sound. Been recording this week for an artist that I actually met when I was in Vienna, Austria, back in June of last year. We were over there with Hollywood Vampires, and I met this artist named Dara. I'm not sure if she has a name to her band. It might just be under her name. But this stuff is really cool. This is what gets me thinking when I do a session like this, where there is absolutely zero of what would be called like the drummer's drumming, like the chops style of drumming. It's so minimalist and so ambient and spacey. It's about finding the sounds, and these are like really slow, cool tunes. I've called it like Mazzy Star meets Pink Floyd almost in a way. And sometimes I'm playing like with a mallet on the snare in my left hand and a stick on the ride cymbal in the right, or just a mallet to get snare backbeats on these really slow, cool tunes. But I just watch myself doing a session like this, and I'm thinking, well, all those guys that practice exclusively just chops, and they want to just watch YouTube videos all day of drummers shedding and going off. I think about how this is just polar opposite. And what would happen if you wanted to get into session playing, but you were one of those guys that really just loves shedding and going off and going crazy on the drums, where this is the mirror image of that? Would you do a session like this and then realize, oh, wow, I really need to focus on more than just trying to shred on the drums. I need to work on my time. I need to work on playing slow tempos. I need to work on my swing element in my groove. There's a lot of things that occur to me when playing these kind of sessions that is like a teachable moment, I guess you could say. And maybe it would be, in some cases, too late for certain drummers that get onto a session like that, where they realize how excruciatingly slow these tempos are and how much you have to relax and breathe. That's such an important thing. There's so much tension in drumming and music as it is, but you also have to have a certain amount of relaxation. So it's like a relaxed intensity. That's what I call it, at least. But these songs I've been doing this last week, these are just complete relax. They are slow, light hitting, like, not even a rim shot on the snare, hitting in the center, not breaking a sweat. But it's a challenge and it's a workout here in other ways. We were given these songs, me and Barry, the engineer, we were given these songs as kind of like carte blanche. Here, figure out what to play. And we're sitting there going, what do we do with these? And I'll just start playing some random things and stumble around while having the headphones on and play along to the track, and we see what sticks out, what works, what doesn't. And you gradually flesh out some parts. And then we'll send it to the artist, and she'll give her notes and talk about what she likes, what could be mixed differently, and it goes back and forth. It's amazing. It's an artist on the other side of the world, and we're doing a recording session. I did record some things on my phone, so maybe I'll put up a video about this. Let's see. Who do we got here? David Vila is back. Thanks for coming back. Joe says, when I saw Van Halen for their 15th anniversary, I got a parking ticket. All right. Oh, man, parking tickets suck. Or your Nita. Oh, come on. They're apples and oranges. I love playing with both of them, and it's just funny how, because they're both female guitar players, people feel like they have to compare them. Why is anybody asking, like, Nita or Ryan or Ori or Tommy? Why does it have to be that female guitar players always have to be pitted against each other? Ori comes from like a lot of blues rock background, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, and then some Carlos Santana, maybe a little bit of Steve Vai also. And Nita comes from more of the metal background, but she's also done other gigs that aren't metal. I don't know. They're just very different players. Yeah, the show was at the Whiskey last night, John 5. How's the new album? Can't wait for it. That is from Marissa. Well, I guess you're talking about the Hollywood Vampires record. That is sounding great. I was cranking that in my car last night on the way to Hollywood. So if you run into me somewhere in LA, maybe I'll be able to play it for you. That's the only way you can hear it right now, in my vehicle. But it should be out. This is Hollywood Vampires. Should be out around, I'm hearing June. I can't tell you for sure. But that's a record coming out. Other releases, there's the Phil X record I played on. I think the name of the record is Stupid Good Lookings. That's the name of the record. And it's in like 3 different volumes. I'm on volume 1, and every song is a different drummer. There's Taylor Hawkins on there, Josh Freese, Matt Chamberlain, a lot of different drummers, Abe Jr. So I'm looking forward to hearing the whole thing. It's going to be fun. And I'll tell you another record that is out that I played on. It's a brand new release. It's a record by a group called New Revenge, or is it A New Revenge? Now, I'm not credited on this record, and I'm going to tell you right here, I did play on this record. James Kotak is listed as the drummer, but this was a session I did 5 years ago. It's a group that has Rudy Sarzo. It has Kerry Kelly on guitar and Ripper Owens from Judas Priest. who was the guy that replaced Rob Halford for a few years. It was amazing. He was in a Judas Priest cover band. And then I believe it was Scott Travis that had a friend that said, you got to hear this guy in this Judas Priest cover band. He might be a good replacement for Rob in the band. And Scott got a VHS of this guy back in the 90s, showed the band, and they called him. It was kind of like what the movie Rockstar was based on, the Mark Wahlberg movie. It's loosely based on what happened with Ripper Owens and Judas Priest. But anyways, A New Revenge. Yeah. I did do this record. Tommy Hendrickson was involved. He recorded vocals, recorded drums. There's a bit of a dispute about it. I may get an angry phone call from a certain person about this, but I don't care. This was a situation where the right thing was not done. I got paid for it. I'm not trying to get money. But you know what? I do these live streams to talk about the music business unfiltered. And this is one of those situations where somebody wasn't available. James was, let's say, incapacitated. He was not in this country at the time. And I needed to learn these songs in about 2 or 3 days. It was a last minute thing, and then knock the whole thing out in one day, like 12 songs. Straight ahead rock stuff, but one day nonetheless, without any real rehearsal with the band or anything like that. And the guy that called me for it, he chooses to try and remain as this list of players that would be like a super group, but you know what? It's not right. I didn't agree to do that record as a ghost player, which would be where somebody plays on a record and they're uncredited. They only get paid, but maybe there's somebody that's in the band. They weren't capable of playing on the record. They weren't able to. And so there's like a ringer called in, sort of a ghost player to do the part but not take the credit. This happened a lot with the Beach Boys and Jackson 5, and there were a lot of session players called in. It's gone on for years, but that is not what I agreed on that particular project. So that's out now. I've seen some videos on YouTube that they shot. Sounds great. A New Revenge. And let's see, who else? Joey Prince, what's up? Getting ready for the road. Am I getting ready? Yeah. By the end of this month, we're leaving. I think April 30th, May 1st, we take off for Mexico City. That's the first Alice Cooper show of the year. That's a big festival down in Mexico. Kiss is on it. We're on it. I can't remember who else, but you look at the list. It's one of those cool festival lineups that people always say, why doesn't this happen in America? Well, yeah, there's a lot of festivals in Europe and South America that happen that would be amazing if they did happen here. And there are good festival lineups in the States. Maybe it's people in LA that say, why can't we get that somewhere close to Los Angeles? Maybe we will someday still. I still think there's room for some good rock festivals that don't just happen like in Maryland, there's M3, and Columbus, there's Rock on the Range, and there's Carolina Rebellion. They happen in America, just maybe not close enough to Southern California. But yeah, we're getting out soon. And then right after the Alice show, we go right into rehearsals with Hollywood Vampires, because we have 7 shows with the Vampires next month, including LA, actually. So that's going to be fun. Let's see. Scrolling down. Hey, Glenn, what are the pros and cons of being in an awesome band that makes wicked good music, but its members don't necessarily all get along well, or an average band where everyone is tight? That's from Ruth. Well, Ruth, I wouldn't know. I have been lucky enough to be in bands where seriously everybody gets along for the most part. When you're on the road for like weeks, months out of the year, are there certain things that are going to get on people's nerves? Of course. That happens with anybody that's going to be living together. But no, everybody in the Alice band gets along. It's amazing. There's no cliques. And yeah, I've had friends in other bands where it's like I hear these horror stories about how they have to live with these idiots on the road, and there's people that just hate each other. I'm thinking, why? Why are you even doing this? Why are you torturing yourself like this? But you know what? They got to work. They've got to make ends meet, so they have to deal with it. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to click off on Instagram now. If you want to continue joining on YouTube, click on the bio on my profile page on Instagram. But I'm going to sign out from this. I'll see you guys. It's in that live feed. All right. Very cool. So, yeah, very lucky in the Alice band. Lori Payne asks, it's just a statement. Love that you are also using mallets and using thoughtful dynamics. That's regarding the session I was talking about. Yeah, it's been fun. I got to go back there right after this live stream today. We got one more song to do. And I think I'm going to be sitting down with Pete Thorne. If you don't know Pete does a live stream. He does one on Sunday. His is maybe done by now. Maybe it's still going. It's like we're competing. We're going up against each other with the live stream. But no, he's amazing. He actually has a great YouTube channel and was able to show me a lot of cool things that he's done with it. Amazing guitar player. The guy's played with Chris Cornell, Melissa Etheridge, Don Henley. He has a lot of great advice that he gives on his YouTube channel. And I'm going to sit down. I think we're going to do something. It's not an interview. We don't like to call it that. We're just going to sit down, talk, hang, and discuss something. It's going to become a video on his channel. And then I'm going to have him do the same for my channel here. I like getting into this talking thing more, talking about the real deal of the music biz. And Pete is very much like that too, giving people the straight story. Because there's too many interviews where it's just this fluff piece and people are getting softball questions and they're not telling you anything that's of value if you're trying to be a pro player or you're curious about it. That's what I want to do differently here. So a few things going on today. Looking forward to that. Kent Roper says, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Scrolling down, getting backed up with the questions. Thanks, David says Team Sobel. I appreciate that. When are you going to Brazil? That is from, is it Darlin? We were in Brazil last that was, I think, September of 2017. We played Rock in Rio, which is amazing. Gigantic, amazing festival. And then we did a couple other shows. We played in Sao Paulo and we played in Curitiba. I think that was 3 shows. Feels like yesterday. That was already a year and a half ago. That's crazy. But hopefully back in Brazil soon. It would be great to go down there with Hollywood Vampires. I know that they played down there in 2015, I believe it was. This is before I was in the band. But it would be great to go to South America with that group. That'd be amazing. So, Kevin Rankin, Kotak, don't get me started. James Kotak is a good buddy of mine for a long time. And I don't know, maybe I'll see him soon. I'll run into him every once in a while. Great drummer. There's no reason other than he wasn't available to play on that record. He would have done a smash-up job. He just wasn't around for it at the time. So who else do we got? Favorite festival in Brazil? Well, Rock in Rio. What else, right? That is from, who asked that? Oh, I lost that question. I can't find it. Oh, that was from a Google user. Oh, nice handle. Lori Payne, how do you unwind after shows? After a show, I'm usually pretty hungry. You know, you burn a lot of calories, you work up an appetite. We're on the bus. This is on tour, I assume. You know, we're on the bus. I like to just have my after show food and chill. Maybe there's a movie on TV. We have the satellite dish on the bus, like DirecTV. Doesn't always work great when you're moving on the bus. This technology has not improved. You're on the bus and it's moving and you get like the screen freezing and then unfreezing and then it freezes again. The satellite dish, it just doesn't pick it up too well. You know what I want to do? I want to plug in my external microphone here. This might give me a better, obviously you guys can hear me because you're asking questions and responding, but I am going to plug this in. Hang on one second. The sound might get lost, but you let me know if it does. Just plug it in this Samson external mic. Let's switch the sources. If you could hear me, let me know in the chat down here. Just let me know. I just want to know that you can hear me. I'm sure if you can, the sound is better right now. I forgot to plug in my external microphone. Let me see. Who else is in here? Joey says I'm good. You can hear me. Good. Glad to hear it. So yeah, Joe says Pete rules. He does. This is from, is it Gaten? Mueller. When your live stream started, I was just listening to another great drummer and singer, Dean Castronova. Have you ever met him? You know, I met Dean when I was a kid. I had just started playing with Tony McAlpine, the guitar player. Amazing guitar player. That was an amazing gig. And I haven't met him since then, but we've talked online, maybe through Twitter. And he has definitely given me some shout outs on Twitter, just from maybe seeing clips on YouTube or whatever. I mean, he's just been a great influence on my playing. My first pro gig was a gig that he used to do, which was Tony McAlpine. Dean played on one of Tony's records called Maximum Security. It's considered a drum classic in a way. It's a record that came out in '87, and drummers were just tripping out when they heard this. It was like, you know, fusion meets metal, basically. And the record before that with Tony McAlpine, his first record, was Steve Smith on drums, who was the perfect candidate to do this sort of metal fusion hybrid. But Dean is cool. We definitely spoke online, but I'm sure I'll see him somewhere soon at some event or festival. He's been playing in this group. I can't remember the name of it, but it's some of the original Santana guys that became Journey guys, Neil Sean and Greg Raleigh. Dean is on drums, and they play a lot of the old school Journey stuff and maybe some of the newer stuff. Dean has an amazing singing voice, so he sings some of the Steve Perry parts, which, you know, wow, what a talent. So who else do we have? Pete is still streaming. You're watching both of us. That's from Shauna. Uh-oh. Maybe you should chime in and let him know, right? But yeah, Pete is great. A lot of great advice. He's got a series on his YouTube. It's called So You Want to Be a Pro Musician. I've watched a couple of these. That's some invaluable advice. Seriously. Check out Pete's channel. The series is So You Want to Be a Pro Musician. Some great stories on there. And let's see. From Mike. Do you ever get physically or mentally worn down by the grind, the biz, or just the physicality of drumming, etc.? The short answer is yes. You could easily get worn down physically and mentally. You have to have things that take you away from the rigors of the road. It's great. It's living the dream, no doubt. I would never complain about it, but you have to have balance. I like to get to the gym and work out during the day at a hotel if I can. I don't get to that every day. It's not always possible, but I like to do that. I don't always hang with the group going to like lunches and things like that. Sometimes you just got to be by yourself and have some silence and just chill. I'll eat at some place near the hotel, maybe have my headphones with me, and so I could watch things on my phone while I chill out and eat, you know, or listen to some music, something like that. You got to have a balance. And once in a while, it's cool to maybe try and get a massage on the road if you can. It's so easy now with the phone. There are apps that help you locate the local masseuses and places that do that, get like the deep tissue type stuff. That's good for unwinding. I probably don't do it enough. But yeah, everybody's got their things they do to relax and just deal with the everyday grind, as you call it, on the road. It's a really fun grind, no doubt. But there's people that can go nuts from that. I see why people go crazy, is what I'm saying. You know, if they're partying and doing all that, that you can't keep that up. Let's see, who do we got? Scrolling down just a bit. Hey Glenn, it's Ruth from Thomas's BDB. I hung with you one-on-one, giving you those drumless tracks to throw down on. What was that? Is this a good way for a young drummer to learn, or should the focus be rudiments? Oh, you're talking about one-on-one tracks versus learning rudiments. I say yes to both. You can't focus too much on songs or too much on rudiments. You have to have a balance of those. There are students, and I've taught for years, there's a kind of student, sometimes all they want to do is learn songs. You know, they come in, show me this Rush song. How do I play this? Show me this part. Well, maybe they're not ready to do that yet. Maybe that part of that Rush song deals with having to know your paradiddle type of exercises and rudiments really well. And I'll bring that up, but that's not always what they want to hear. For some drummers, learning rudiments is like eating your vegetables. It's like, it's something they just don't want to do. They want to get to the dessert, which is all the shredding and the cool fills and patterns. The rudiments are how you're going to get there. If you have a good single and double stroke, then all the other rudiments come a lot easier because they're all combinations of singles and doubles. So there has to be an equal balance of songs and being influenced by certain drummers and bands. And then there has to be the really scholarly side of it. Like I started out working in the Buddy Rich rudiment book. I believe the full title is Modern Interpretation of Snare Drum Rudiments. It's by Buddy Rich and Henry Adler. Famous book. It takes you through just about every rudiment. There's the Ted Reed book, Syncopation. There was the Colin Bailey bass drum book. These are important. There's Stick Control by George Lawrence Stone. There's that, and then there's listening to music, having the influences. You got to get with a good teacher, hopefully, that can take you through all this. So, yeah, good question. Chad or Taylor? I assume you mean maybe Chad Smith or Taylor Hawkins. Both amazing players, no doubt. I never like choosing one person over another. Do you notice that? Everyone's got great things to offer. You're great at this. Love the behind-the-scenes shop talk. Thanks for that, Kent. Appreciate it. Yeah, Jerry Judge passed away. That was somebody that was Johnny's bodyguard. I did not know him well at all, but yeah, rest in peace. That's really a sad thing. I saw a lot of posts pop up on that on social media. So yeah, rest in peace to Jerry. Are you and Matt Sorum good? That's from the Abbey Diary. I've known him for maybe 15 years, not well on an acquaintance level. I hope. I really don't know. I'm on his old gig. I assume that's why you ask. He said that he left the gig to pursue some other things. I don't know. It's a weird thing in Hollywood. People talk. It gets back to me. I hear things. You want the straight story, right? That's why you're tuning in. I don't know. I haven't seen him or talked to him since. So stay tuned. I'll find out. I don't know. I've been friends with him for a good while. You can see a YouTube clip of him and I double drumming with Camp Freddy. That was like maybe 10 years ago or more. Great drummer, no doubt. Had some very cool big gigs. Let's see. You can hear loud and clear. Thanks for that. Glen Sobel Italia. Instagram fan page. Check them out. You could hear. Good. Okay, that's because I'm scrolling down. I'm behind on the questions. Things are piling up. What's a typical after show party look like? What does it look like? Oh my God. It's like we're all on a bus and we all got these sandwiches from Jimmy John's or Subway, or, you know, we got our food and we're just chowing down. It's such a raging after show party. It's insane. No, we don't really have too many after show parties. Once in a while, if we all have a lot of friends in a particular city, we might have those friends in our dressing room after. This is the thing with Alice. We leave the city, like I'd say way over 90% of the time, we leave the city we played in maybe between an hour and a half after the show is finished. If the show is done by 10:30, we're out between 11:30 and midnight. Not much time for an after show party. If we have guests that we got into the show, we go out into the guest area, or maybe that's like in the house, like by the left side of the stage or whatever. We'll go out, we'll say hi. I mean, it's not much of a party. It's just catching up with people. But once in a while, I think of like a city, for some reason, San Antonio, we all got all these friends there, and we've had a couple of huge gatherings in our dressing room after the show where, you know, we've got things to serve and we got drinks and some food. It's nothing crazy. Just people hanging and catching up. It's great because you get to see people that maybe you haven't seen in years or a year or so from the last time you played in that city. But it's not this big party. That's not something that goes on. I couldn't do that every night, do the show and then have this crazy after party. You know, once in a while we have things like that. Not too often. And the reason that we leave the city so quickly is because Alice has a tea time in the next city. He's playing golf early in the morning, so we got to get to the next city. He's got energy, man. He gets off the bus. If we arrive at, 7 in the morning in the next city, he's making coffee, he's going to breakfast, and then straight to the golf course. I could not do that. And Ryan Roxy golfs with them usually too. More power to you guys. Have I ever crossed paths with Green Day? No, I can't say that I have. We haven't been on the same festival with them or anything like that. Maybe one of these days. But yeah, Trey Cool, great drummer, obviously. Great drummer. What is your favorite drum technique? That is from Edda. I've never thought about that. A favorite drum technique? I'm just going to turn on the light in this room. There we go. Favorite drum technique? I probably use molar technique more often than anything else, and so do a lot of other drummers that might not even realize it. They might not realize how often they do this sort of, you know, I can't really see the stick hitting the surface too well, but I call molar technique getting 2 notes for the price of 1. You get 1 on the way down, then 1 on the way up. And it could be just at this tempo where you're playing like 8th notes on a hi-hat, like Back in Black by AC/DC. Using that molar technique to get that sort of pulse on the downbeat. But you could use it to get a faster tempo going. And then you could do 1 stroke going down and 2 coming up. Or maybe 1 stroke down, 3 strokes coming up. Yeah, so it's kind of an awkward angle to be doing that at. But yeah, molar technique is probably what would be like my favorite. I've never thought about having a favorite. But there's that. There's, of course, the French grip where you're getting the using the fingers. But that's not something I'm using in rock and roll too much. That doesn't get you a very loud volume. I end up using that more in drum clinics and, you know, for soloing, that type of soloing, the drum clinic kind of drum solo. Ken asks, hey, Glenn, what metronome app do you use? And second request, if I may, play something for us. What's your favorite drum set warm-up? What metronome app? Yeah, I've been using some metronome apps in these videos that I've been putting up. They're called How to Learn Songs Quickly for Drummers. It's another thing I've been doing. It's what I consider giving back. There's so many people that ask about these kind of things, or they just straight up ask, like, how do you learn a list of songs so quickly? How do you go into the studio not knowing what you're going to play and then end up recording a song that day? How do you do that? And I figured, well, why don't I just show people with a YouTube video? And what I did, I got this thing right here. It's this coiled iPhone holder, and I put the phone in here. You can clip that in, and then you can angle it downward and place this on a table. And I write out in real time. I chart out a song, and I listen to it. And I write out the number of bars in the verse, the choruses, the kick snare patterns, the important transitional fills that I feel I need to replicate. I do that. So, you know what? And I'm forgetting what your question was. Oh, about the Metronome app. Yeah. And the Metronome apps that I use are either, there's one called Subdivide and there's one called Metro Timer. I think if you just type in Metronome into the App Store on your phone, you'll find many metronome apps. And the reason I'm using those in those videos is that part of learning a song is finding out what BPM it is, the speed of the song. And not every song was recorded with a metronome, a click track, in other words. But you could still use the tap tempo feature on the metronome to find out what the approximate BPM is. That way, like when I'm on the gig, especially if it's a gig with little or no rehearsal, which is more common than people think, but I'm wearing earbuds. I got them clipped to the back of my shirt, and I got one in my right ear usually. And that's connected to my iPad that has the Metronome app going. And I'll be able to hit play and get the tempo, and I'll count off the song, and maybe I'll play a little bit to that metronome. I'll let it go. And if it feels right, I'll keep the metronome on. But if it feels like the band is pulling and they want it like this much faster, I'm not going to try and force them to stay at that exact tempo. I'll just reach over and I'll turn it off. I've gotten good at playing and reaching over and hitting the button on the iPad. So yeah, that's what I'm doing in those videos. I'm charting out the song. I'm figuring out the tempos. And you were also asking, play something for us. What's your favorite drum set warm-up? Boy, and I'm so not warmed up. I just woke up like, I don't know, less than an hour before going on the air here. Drinking my coffee still. Drum set warm-up. Let me see. I don't know. There's a couple of things. Usually I just sit down and play. I'm not sure how this is going to sound today, the sound of it, as far as the clarity of the kick and snare, but like I was talking about before. Maybe something like that. A great warm-up that is so simple that I've been doing for years is simply 1 bar of singles, 1 bar of doubles. I've been doing that forever, like singles, doubles, singles, doubles, and then increasing the tempo. Could be cleaner. I'm so not warmed up. Sundays can be tough. But yeah, that's just a couple of warm-ups that I do. If I even think about warming up, like I said, I just sometimes jump on the drums and start playing along to a metronome or just some ideas, and then after a few minutes, I'm a lot more warmed up. Lori asked, do you ever do meet and greet? No, not usually. With Alice, we do have friends that we go out and say hi to, people that we might have gotten into the show in a certain city, but no, we haven't officially been a part of the meet and greet. That's something that happens before and after the show, depending on which artist it is, whether it's Alice or Hollywood Vampires. Do you wear gloves? Did you use gloves when you were younger? No, I never liked wearing drum gloves. I don't know. I like feeling the stick just right in my hand without anything in between. So no gloves for me. I know a lot of drummers can't play without them. That's fine. Whatever works. Scrolling down just a bit. Yeah, wow, I'm falling behind. Is there a well-rounded drumming book that includes varying aspects on drumming that you'd suggest? I'm teaching myself several things after time away from my kit, so I'm seeking out resources. There's no one book that's going to make it happen for you. I listed a few earlier, which are best to go through with a teacher. I listed the Buddy Rich Rudiment book, Modern Interpretation of Snare Drum Rudiments. I talked about Ted Reed's Syncopation. That's a must for somebody that wants to get more into reading, which I always say is super important. And Colin Bailey's Bass Drum Control. That's an important book, getting your left and right foot going with a lot of different exercises, getting right foot double strokes going, independence with the feet. There's so many books out there, and there's so much instructional content online. What do you do? How do you focus on like one or two things? It's like impossible, right? Because there's too much. It's flooded. That's why getting with a good teacher is important. I know that's not always possible, depending on where you live, but those are books I started with, and I know there are teachers that still use those books. And it's got to be mixed with a steady diet of good listening to the right kind of music. If you want to become a musician that can collaborate with other players, not just shred on the drums. Anybody could do that. Anybody could get, a drum set, set it up in their bedroom and film themselves shredding and playing drum solos. Nobody ever got a gig from doing things like that. It's the substance. It's the reading. It's the musicianship. So let's see. Scrolling down. I got to catch up here. A lot of good questions today. Can you talk a bit about your meeting Steve Smith or Terry Bozzio and how and if they influenced your playing? That's from Joey Schwartz. Well, I know Terry for a number of years. Obviously, a huge influence to all of us. You know, his playing with UK and Frank Zappa, Missing Persons, of course. So many legendary recordings. Terry's been a good buddy. It's been a minute since I've seen him, but I met him in the 90s. I was playing at this thing. I was sitting in, and it was this club that wasn't far from my house. It was called Club M, and they would do this thing where it seemed to happen around the time of the NAMM show, the music trade show, because everyone was in town. They would have this night where there'd be 3 drum sets set up on stage, and a band would play, and 3 drummers at a time would play with the band. And this was like the Woodland Hills Drum Club. It was Greg Bissonette and Myron Grumbacher from Pat Benatar and Dome Perry from Jethro Tull and Tristan Bowden from Chicago. All these guys. And I kind of was the kid in that group in a way. I was Greg Bissonette's student at one time. So that's how I got to know a lot of these guys and going to these types of events. So I got up to play. And they would always have the drummers trade 8s. Everybody takes turns playing 4 or 8 bars of a solo, and then the next guy does, and you keep doing it like in this round robin sort of thing. So I played, and then Bozzio approached me afterwards and had some very nice things to say. And I was calm, but I was freaking out inside, like, oh my God, this is not happening. Terry Bozzio approached me to say some complimentary things about what I played that night. I was probably doing some licks that were, stolen from him. I don't know, but yeah, we became friends after that. And you could see, I don't know if it's still available online. I did a thing with him on Drum Channel years ago where we did a sit-down interview and then we jammed. He was on this big percussion setup and I was on drum set. That was a good time. Steve Smith I have met, but I do not know him. I've been introduced to him maybe a couple times, but it was very brief, so I wasn't expecting him to know who I was. I met him once at NAMM. It was my buddy Mike who introduced me, Mike Vanderhule from Y&T, great drummer, knows Steve. He introduced me to Steve Smith, and I shook his hand. And you're at the NAMM show. You're meeting people. You're shaking hands all day, and it was like, yeah, hey, nice to meet you. And I swear to God, Steve Smith, he said, oh man, you shook my hand really hard. I thought, oh my God, I just crushed the hand of one of my drumming heroes. I wasn't like, nice to meet you. I wasn't like that fanboy nervous thing. It was just, hey, nice to meet you. Shaking hands all day, right? And I was really concerned about that. And he was about to play, I think, at the Korg booth with his jazz group. And we were talking, another minute or two went by, the 3 of us. And he went, oh, man, you really shook my hand hard. And I thought, okay, Steve Smith officially hates me now. This is not good. But he played. It was great. He sounded great. But yeah, he's just a guy that maybe doesn't like to shake hands. And there are a lot of musicians like that. There are guitar players that do meet and greets. They don't do maybe they do something like this, but they don't want someone going, nice to meet you. It's so great to meet you. And then, you can't play for like a day. But yeah, I have met Steve, and hopefully next time I meet him, he will not go, you're the guy that shook my hand too hard. No, I don't think so. But yeah, huge influences. So, let's see, scrolling. Hey, Glenn, I thought it would be great if Hollywood Vampires one day make their version of Dirty Diana by Michael Jackson. Do you have any ideas of paying tribute to him? Thank you in advance. Well, that's not the first song I would think of when it comes to that group, but you never know. There could be covers that are so out of left field that a band can do, that can make their own, where you go, wow, I would have never thought that this would work, but it works. Last night, I was at the John 5 show at the Whiskey. They went into Michael Jackson's song. It was Beat It, which I guess it makes sense. There's the Eddie Van Halen guitar solo in there that so many guitar players have learned. But it was an instrumental version of Beat It where he did the vocal line on guitar. It was very cool. At first, it was like, they're playing Michael Jackson? But then it was like, oh, this is cool. This works. I like the covers that come out of left field like that. It's actually very cool. So you never know. That was from Molly. Thanks for that. Ruth, oh, from Thomas Lang's Big Drum Bonanza. I do remember you. Yes, I do. How you doing, Ruth? She was asking if I remember her from that. Yeah, I did Thomas Lang's Big Drum Bonanza. It was 2016. And that's a drum camp where it's Thomas, of course, amazing. And he does a clinic. And when I did it, it was also me, Brian Fraser Moore from Madonna's band, spectacular. Gergo Borlai, Hungarian drummer, lives in Los Angeles now. Mind-blowing. He's amazing. And there was Scott Pilgrim on drums, also just amazing. And I think it was 4 or 5 days long. I was there for 2 of the days. I would do a clinic, a class, and then I think the next day was all private lessons. And it's just a great thing that Thomas has put together. He's done these, I think, in a few different cities and countries where he gets several drummers to be the guest teachers, and people eat it up. You know, this concept of drum camps, music camps, wasn't really a thing back when I was 15, 16 years old. I would have loved it. I would have begged my parents to pay and put me in this drum camp where I'd be in heaven for 4 days learning. Lots of learning. So good to see you, Ruth. What exercises do you practice before the shows? Hands. Well, I was talking about the singles and doubles combination warm-up. That's always good. I have a DW pad kit I play on, but sometimes it's just the one real field practice pad. I make sure and do all these stretches. I get moving like this for, few minutes just to get the blood flow, and then I do all these neck stretches. That's almost more important than the hands warm up to me. If I don't have time to do warm up with actual sticks in my hand, I'll just have to warm up within the first song or two in the set. It just depends on how much time I have. So George Burroughs watched the 6-stroke roll lesson today. Oh, nice. That was a lesson. I believe I did that in conjunction with Drum Magazine. I write an instructional column for them. And when I would have time, I would do a video lesson to go along with the column in the magazine. Usually they'd be filmed after sound check in whatever city we're in. And I believe that's where that one was filmed. 6-stroke roll, one of my favorite rudiments. Really great. It's there's a few different versions of the six-stroke roll. The one I was focusing on for that video, if I'm thinking of the right video, it's the one that's right, left, left, right, right, left, right. Many variations on that. But yeah, 6-stroke roll. Very cool, jazzy rudiment, but it can be powerful. How do you stay so sexy, Glenn? That's from Sarah. Well, thank you. I don't feel sexy right now. I feel like I just woke up an hour ago, which I did, but I was glad to wake up and talk to you guys. Let's see. Alice totally rocks. What a cool person and professional man. Yes, he does. He is a great boss. Oh my God, I'm falling so behind with questions. Keep calm and Alice Cooper. That's right. Yes, golf almost every day on tour. That's Kent. Yeah, maybe 5-6 days a week he plays golf. Don't know how he does it. Do you have a rock idol? If it's not a secret, who is it? I mean, there's my drumming influences, all the people I've mentioned so far, and so many more. Those would be considered my idols, I guess, for lack of a better word. Influences. You got to have them. You got to have influences. So very important. Yeah, raise your fist and yell t-shirt. That's right. Let's see. Most awkward on-stage Spinal Tap kind of moment. Well, we were definitely talking about that last week when I had Jordan Burns in as a special guest. He's got the most crazy story of all time, I think, as far as awkward, and it's in the archived live stream from last week. Funny story. Me, I mean, as far as Spinal Tap moments, that's a reference to the movie Spinal Tap. People can just call it Spinal Tap moment, and most musicians know what that is. Hard to say. There have been gear malfunctions. Everybody's dealt with that on stage. I can't say there's been any awful moment where you just want to put a bag over your head so nobody knows it's you. I mean, I've played in certain bands way back where there was just embarrassing people on stage with me, like singers that just sucked and were singing so horribly and out of key. I just was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm on stage with this person right now. I just want to like walk off the stage and leave the venue and never come back. That's definitely happened. Like, it doesn't matter how tight or great the band is. If the singer is singing out of key and just horrible, it's all horrible. Everything. The singer takes the whole thing down. And these weren't any like name people. I don't think it's anybody that you out there would recognize. But yeah, there's been moments like that. I don't know if that's a Spinal Tap moment, but it was embarrassing nonetheless. Butch Vig, Dave Grohl, Metronome, never mind. Well, if it's something that Dave Grohl truly didn't like, I'm sure he learned to like it. We all did. Drummers don't necessarily like playing to a metronome when they're first introduced to it. I mean, I didn't love it, but I started to go, you know what? This is actually fun. This is a challenge. I was a kid. I started practicing with a drum machine. I was 18, maybe. And I always want to impress that upon drum students. You have to practice with a metronome every day. Slow tempos, medium, fast, everything, but especially slow tempos. That's where you truly learn how to breathe and relax. You realize, wow, I have a tendency to rush on these types of fills, these types of patterns. I got to slow it down. I got to breathe. And it teaches you that. You feel the space between each note a lot better when you practice with that metronome. And then when you're playing without it, you will naturally start feeling that space and that time better. That's just going to happen. When you're recording in the studio, you're under the microscope, you're hearing yourself back, playing to a metronome. It's very educational. It's very eye-opening. So, Glenn, you're an absolute master. Well, thank you, Shauna. That's very sweet of you. Getting caught up with questions. As a performer and athlete, do you have a routine that helps mentally and physically prepare for a show? That's from Robert. Yeah, it depends on the show. If it's a tour that's been going for a while, the show starts to become part of muscle memory. But if it's a brand new show, if it's something where I'm coming in on very little or no rehearsal, yeah, you got to kind of tell yourself, especially for like the first show or two, you got to tell yourself, don't worry about putting on a show per se. If I'm reading the show, like when I did the Motley Crue subbing for a week, or Vasco Rossi back in 2010 in Italy, subbing this big show for 40,000 people last minute, you got to kind of play this mental game with yourself where you got to say, don't worry about what's going on out there, the audience. Don't worry about putting on a show. They're not as focused on you as you think they are. They're looking at the singer most of the time. You got to tell yourself these things. Focus on the music stand that's to the left, not losing my place. I got to tell myself these things. That's sort of a mental warm-up, maybe. Warm-up might not be the best way to describe that, but you just got to play that game with yourself. And if you're playing to a click track live at a show, and it's the first show, you got to say, okay, some of these tempos are going to feel a little slower. You have to anticipate that things are going to feel just a little bit more laid back than they did in rehearsal because of the adrenaline, because of the audience, the energy. You got to sort of play all these games with yourself. And then, of course, I spoke about all the stretching I do beforehand. Drumming is athletic. You have to be able to stretch and do everything you need prior to the show so you don't get tense or locked up or do damage to your tendons and muscles. Let's see. Do I avoid relationships? No. Why? Because I'm on the road? No. Everybody in the Alice band, just about everybody is married, or I'm not, obviously, but it can work with FaceTime and technology nowadays. It's a lot easier. I watched the movie recently, Green Book. Anybody see that movie? The guy goes on tour driving around this piano player, and he's away for 2 months. That's Vigo's character in the movie. He could only write letters because calling long distance back then was so expensive. I thought that was interesting about the movie, that he could only write letters, and then the piano player helped him write these letters so they could be written in very beautiful English That's it. To make a call back then would have been too much. It would have broke the bank to call home from down south up to New York. Nowadays, FaceTime, it's free, a lot easier. Y&T had Motley Crue open for them at the first show they played. Oh, yeah. At one point or another, everyone's played with everyone. Kevin Rankin says, you don't know your own strength with the Steve Smith handshake. Love the Bozier story. You mentioned Mike Vanderheuvel. Just watched his show with Y&T 2 weeks ago. Mike played the whole set. Left foot lead? Why? Did he hurt his right foot? What happened? That's crazy. Last time I saw Y&T, actually, it was in Dublin, Ireland, November of 2017. We were on a night off. They were playing right down the street. They were great. Great band. Have I watched Play by Dave Grohl? No, I haven't. Is that a documentary? I have not. Joe with the singer jokes. That's funny. How do you know when a singer's at your door, they can't find the key and doesn't know when to come in? Yeah, singers not knowing when to come in. That's been a big problem too. Playing a gig, it could be my residency at Lucky Strike in Hollywood, the monthly gig, where you learn a song and you're getting up to play with this singer that maybe you just met, and they're coming in the wrong place or late, early. That can really disrupt the flow in a bad way. A singer has to know the structure of the song. If they come in the wrong place, forget about it. It's over. It's all done. It's just that's a pet peeve of mine, I guess you could say. But you mentioned about can't find the key. That's my friend Ed's definition of an amateur on the gig. He'll say that they're in jail. This guy's in jail. He's behind 8 bars and he can't find the key. And I've played with many people like that. It feels disrespectful. If I've put in the time to learn this song and know that I'm going to perform this and I don't want to have a moment on stage where there's a train wreck, it's disrespectful when there's someone else that clearly hasn't done that kind of preparation. That's not good. There's all these nights in LA where people are sitting in. You want to get the song right, because if you don't, you won't get asked to play again. You'll be seen as that guy that messed up that song bad. So, yeah, that's a very important tip to aspiring players. When you show up to perform at one of these nights where you're sitting in, you know what you're going to be playing ahead of time. Learn the song. Learn it inside out. Learn it like your life depended on it. And you don't want to be that guy that's blamed for train wrecking the whole thing. So, do I ever get repetitive strain injury from drumming in the past years? And if so, how did I overcome it? Repetitive strain? No, that's from mechanical. Hard to pronounce that name. Repetitive strain? No, I've had my share of neck and shoulder problems. I mean, everybody's had something. I don't know one touring rock drummer that hasn't had to deal with something, whether it's hands, wrists, arm, neck, back. I mean, just from living, you get the back problems. Everybody deals with that in one way or another through stress or repetitive motions, athletic type things like drumming or actually playing sports. It could be anything. I haven't had any hand issues, which is good. It's always been up here for the things I've dealt with. But, I do the stretching now. You realize you're not 18 years old anymore, and your body needs to properly prepare for the show. And then afterwards, I'm putting ice on my neck and upper back. That's just part of the ritual. Any ideas for future guests? Sure. Yeah, if I do this when I'm on tour, it'll be easy. Get somebody in the band to come down the hall in the hotel. Why not, right? Let's see. Gonna have to get out of here soon. Would you rather whack your knuckles with your stick or hit your finger on a rim? Well, I've done both of those. I mean, look, we were talking about that last week, Jordan and I. What have we done that's hurt ourselves on the kit? Yeah, hit ourselves in the ear, or I hit myself in the tooth by accident way back. Hitting the cymbal and then choking it. Something happens where it gets caught under your fingernail, and I'll be playing. I'll look down. I'll say, "What's that red stuff on my drums?" "Oh, that's my blood." Whoops. Yeah, it's happened. Drumming can be a very hazardous thing, but the show must go on. Mike Beeston asked, hi, Glenn, would you list as double bass drumming influences specifically? Yeah, who is specifically a double bass influence? A lot of that started with Louis Bellson. I saw him play as a kid way back. He would play every year at Warner Center Park, which is right near where I live. Other than Louis, I mean, the list is huge. There's, of course, Dean Castronova, Steve Smith got really into the three-stroke rough, which became a big thing for me with double bass. There's so many things that you can do with that. Scott Travis, who's been in Judas Priest now since the early 90s, he's become a good buddy of mine. And we actually sat down with two kids for like 3 hours at my practice space. And I thought I had figured out certain things that he did. And it turns out I figured them out with a different approach, with left foot lead, whereas he had done it with a right foot lead approach. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm glad I didn't know that, because it made me develop my own way of playing it. But Scott Travis, huge influence. Most people would know him from like the Judas Priest Painkiller intro and also the Racer X intro, Scarified. They're related in a way, those two patterns. But what he came up with was some innovative stuff. Definitely Scott. Greg Bissonette, of course, my mentor. Vinny, believe it or not, Vinny Colaiuta, some very interesting double bass things that he's done. Not that people think double bass when they hear his name. They don't think that is the first item on the list of Vinny items, Vinny-isms. But yeah, definitely him. There's definitely been some more contemporary players. My good buddy Bobby Drzambek, some really killer double bass things he's done. Alex Van Halen, how could you not list him? See, now I'm getting into listing players. I'm always afraid of who I'm going to leave out. Thomas from Meshuggah, absolutely. And there's a lot of contemporary players out there that are doing some great stuff. Bozio, I mentioned earlier. Let's see. 20-plus minute song that Dave did where he played all the instruments. Made a mistake in the 19th minute. Oh, was this a Dave Grohl thing? Yeah, I think I heard about that, where there was this long composition. Sure, maybe I've seen clips of that. Joey asks, is economy of motion as important for a drummer as a guitar player, or not at all? No, economy of motion is super important. That's what like molar technique is in a way. If you're playing that, or let's say you're playing one-handed 16th note grooves, it's a lot easier to play it that way using molar technique than to go. That's a lot more work to do that. That's a different sound. You might need that, but if I'm playing a groove using triplets like that, a lot easier than. That's going to be a lot more muscles that are tricep and in the back, believe it or not. Whereas molar technique, you're using the muscles that are in the forearm, the wrist. Yeah, economy of motion with drumming is very important. It's something to think about. There's a lot of drummers that sometimes their stick height gets too high when they're doing something rudimental. And I'll explain, well, when the tempo gets faster, you're not going to have time to bring the stick up that high. You have to think about things like stick height. I didn't even realize that guitar players looked at that as an important thing to focus on. So, yeah, good question, Joey. Thank you, Glenn. You are cool. Well, thank you for that. George Burroughs. Mike Bennett said he was going to tune in. Told me how much I learned from you, by the way. Well, that's cool. Mike Bennett's a good buddy, great drummer. I believe he's been playing at the Sayers Club here in Hollywood. Let's see. Tore my ACL last Friday playing hockey. That's too bad. Oh my God. Hockey is a violent sport. You're not 18 anymore. That's what Alice sings every night. See, there it was. There was the joke right there, and I didn't even realize it. That's funny. Rachel says, I was at your gigs in Ireland. Amazing 2 nights. Oh, thanks. Yeah, we played 2 nights at the same theater in Dublin. It was freezing there. Oh my God. But yeah, cool to play in Ireland. That was already almost a year and a half ago. Crazy how time flies. Sarah Patrick wants to know, how did I first meet Alice? I first met Alice on the first day of rehearsal. for the gig, believe it or not. I had recorded for him in 2010 in Nashville, but I didn't meet him. That's a common thing as a session player. You never meet the singers or the artists that you're playing for. It's you, the producer, engineer, maybe one or two other musicians on the gig, like bass, guitar. But that recording session led to the gig a year later. I was recommended based on having done that recording session. And Alice said, oh, well, I heard him. I sang over his tracks, but I need to see him. My drummer has to be flashy. He said something like that. So Tommy Hendrickson, my good buddy of many, many years, he was there and said, well, here, let me find some stuff on YouTube. Maybe it was something where I was doing this or this, I don't know. But the substance was the recording session. It showed musically that I got the vibe of the gig. But Alice wanted to make sure I wasn't like a boring drummer that plays like this looking down and just looks very unentertaining. So that's when I met him, after he gave the thumbs up and Tommy called me and it was all locked in. And first day rehearsal, hi, I'm your new drummer. Nice to meet you. That was basically it. So I'm going to have to get out of here soon, over to the recording studio. Scott Travis is amazing. Yes, he is. How many drum sets do you have? I really like the Mapex Green kit of the $1 Billion. Well, it's based on the album cover of $1 Billion Babies. I still do have that kit that might end up in a Hard Rock Cafe. I play DW now. So yeah, when you endorse a certain company, like I was with Mapex for 16 years, you can require a lot of drums from them. It could be a tour kit that lasts a couple years, a year or two, but then there's a new tour, a new set, like a new set design for the tour, new drum set. And yeah, they can pile up. I have Orion kits still from back in the day. Then Saturn, they get new lines of drum sets. They want to get it to their artists so they can be seen on tour. That's what endorsements are all about, visibility. So yeah, I've got a lot of drum sets piled up. That over there, that's the first kit I ever had. Most of that is a company called Emerald, which doesn't exist anymore. That was some small company way back. And then some of that is Tama Swing Star, maybe, because I had them order in the same finish, that silver gray kind of thing. But yeah, there's a drum set in the kitchen here at my place. There's of course stuff in Alice Cooper storage. But yeah, DW is what I play now, and I've got two kits going from them. One is the Alice tour kit, and the other has become the Hollywood Vampires tour kit. So because of that, having both those kits tied up, I'm getting a new, what I would call an in-town kit coming from them, so I can have DW gear to play around town in studio. And I've got a PDP kit coming. For those of you that don't know, PDP, DW makes them. They're supposed to be the quote-unquote more affordable line, but you know what? Those drums sound good. You know who swears by that kit is Kurt Biscara, a good buddy of mine. He has a PDP kit set up in his recording studio. And those drums, those sound good. There's a lot of hard rock guys that take those out on tour. Check out PDP. You know, if DW, if the collector's series is out of your price range, you might love what PDP is doing. So yeah, the kits, they pile up. And snare drums, you know, drummers with snare drums were crazy like that. Thanks for the time. See you soon. Thanks, Joey. Favorite lick you'd like to jam, not Alice related? I mean, God, drum licks, there's so many. So many. I haven't been in that mindset this week since doing this session where it's full on minimalist. You know, it's fills, it's like mallets on the drums. Ooh, go, doom, psh. You know what the drum sound is like? This was my suggestion on the session. I'm getting on another subject right now, but this is what's interesting about a session. You could spend just as much time figuring out what kind of drum sounds you're going to use. It could take just as long to do that as it can to track the drum part. But I listened to this song and I was talking to the artist. I told her, I said, you know what? What if we did a sound on this song that was like A Day in the Life by the Beatles? That's that Ringo sound where the fills and the cymbal crash, they sound like, you know, shot, booms, ga-doom, like really lightly hitting the crash, but the microphones are so hot. They're turned up so a light crash fills up the entire recording for that couple of seconds. And they like that. Her and her band liked that idea. And that's kind of what we were going for, was that light hitting but big sound. that you can get through proper reverb and room mics. Let's see. You were in Ireland, Olympia Theatre in November. Yeah, that is from Anna. So much fun. It was raining after the show, hopping over puddles. Yeah, it was cold and rainy, but hey, that's Ireland, right? Hanoi Rocks. Yeah, Michael Monroe from Hanoi Rocks has gotten up to play with us, usually when we pass through Helsinki, and his band has opened for us a couple of times. He loves Alice, and we love him. He's a great guy. We've sound checked when he was on tour with us, and he got up to sing Under My Wheels with us. Alice doesn't do sound check. He doesn't need to. So yeah, Monroe, he was more than happy to come up and fill the part of Alice for our sound check. That was fun. Great guy. He plays saxophone too. Does your setup change between Alice and Hollywood Vampires? It does. There's two different kits. Lately, the Vampires kit has been a single 24-inch kick and then 12, 16, 18, 14 on the side. I did go to one rack for the Alice setup, but the Alice kit does have double bass. For this run with Vampires, I might have double bass. There's certain issues we got to deal with logistics. We have an Alice festival date in Mexico. That date is May 4th. May 5th, we are right back in Los Angeles, where Tommy, Alice, and myself go right into Hollywood Vampires rehearsals. So that kit has to be ready to go. And me and my drum tech, Michael, are talking about how logistically gear is going to get from one place to the next. I believe the Mexico gig, I'm going to have local gear, or we're shipping some of my drums to that. This is a complicated thing to figure out because we have to get everything back to LA as soon as possible, but it's not going to be back a day later. So I may have to do a slightly different kit for the Vampires run this time. I'm not sure. It might be the black kit with double bass. Whatever it is, it's going to be great. It's going to sound fine, and we're looking forward to those shows. Greetings from Czech Republic. You're my big motivation to play drums. Thanks a lot. Well, I appreciate that, Roman. This is wonderful. Have to break loose. You're a natural. Look forward to next time. Have subscribed and set your reminder. Well, thank you for that, Kent. Yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't mention that enough. I forget to talk about that, promoting the channel. I'm terrible at promoting sometimes. But yeah, subscribe to the channel. There'll be other videos put up, live stream reminders. Sure. This has been great connecting with you guys. A couple more. Mike is asking, even with your years of experience while playing, have you ever realized you were playing harder too loud than you needed to? All the time. Sometimes you have to tell yourself to back off 5 or 10%. And you got to know that most people are not even going to notice if you back off. Yeah, you could play too hard if you can't hear yourself well. That's a reason. Or if the guitars are coming out of your monitor and they're just too loud, the other instruments are too loud. When I'm dialing in my monitor mix, I don't want the other instruments to be too much in volume. It could drown myself out, especially if we're not on in-ears, you know? Yeah, sometimes you got to realize that what's coming out of the PA system is very different from what you're hearing back there on the drums. And you got to tell yourself, you know what, back off. If it feels like you're too tense, you got to breathe and relax and maybe just ease up in how hard you're playing. Most people will not notice as far as the volume goes. Excellent question. Hanoi Rocks did a cover of Under My Wheels in the 80s. I didn't know that. I learned things doing these live streams. Shauna, Glenn, you are so awesome for sharing your Sundays with all of us. What amazing insight into the world of professional that we glean. Thanks. It's not a question, it's a compliment. Thank you. You totally rock. Couple more. What's the drum head on your left that creates the real deep fading sound? Like when Alice comes and drops his cape. Oh, okay. On my left. Well, what you're hearing, that's from Esprit. What you're hearing is probably the 808 sample. What is that? People refer to it as an 808. It's based on this drum machine that Roland put out in the 80s called the Roland TR-808 drum machine. You've heard all these sounds. They were used in a lot of rap songs in the 80s. And the 808 kick, it's like a sudden burst of low end. It's like boom. It's that sound. And people just call that an 808 kick now. And people generally know what that is, what they're talking about. It's It's triggered off of a Roland SPD pad that I have to my left. I have that on the Vampires kit and the Alice kit, on both lately. And also on the Vampires kit, I've got the Gong bass drum behind me. That's like this big bass drum that's mounted. It's only about 4 inches thick, so they call it a pancake gong. DW makes that. And usually I think they're 2 or 3 inches thick. I had them make a custom one. They made 2 of them for me, actually, for the Vampires kit, custom pancake gong bass drums. So that triggers the 808 sound that you hear a lot, or sometimes it triggers an actual gong sound. It's funny, a gong bass drum triggering a gong sound. But I believe for the Alice kit this year, by the time we do the new show in July, we're going to have a couple of gong bass drums on that kit as well. Got to change it up a little bit. I'm going to have the same kit in the red with the rack, but with the new show, there's going to be some things added to the kit with the new Alice production that we're doing. So, yeah, that's what that is, gong bass drums. Can I please show a proper stick twirl that is useful? Okay, this will be one of the last things. There is a video that is on my YouTube channel here. It's from years ago, I think 2010. I did a drum festival in Mexico and somebody asked me that question. But I use what's called the Cigar Grip. And I get it going like this. And then what you got to do is use your index finger to get it going, for me, to my right. To you, it'll look like going to the left. But that's how I get the stick twirl thing going, like that. And then being able to get it between a hit. For me, it's backwards. Like I was doing this for years, and one time someone said, "Oh, you do that backwards." I said, "I do? Okay, I guess I do it backwards. Forwards be this way," and I can't even really do forwards. But the trick is to get a hit between each stick spin. And the trick is to not do it on the wrong gig. Don't do it when you're playing a nice sensitive ballad, but you know, both hands, then getting an equal hit and being able to play a backbeat and then being able to get that hit, mix it in without missing a beat. You don't want it to interfere with the flow of what you're playing, otherwise it defeats the purpose. But yeah, being able to do that and kind of work it seamlessly into what you're playing. That's the trick, is how to set it up, how to make room for that to happen. And so that means that my finger, it's going back and forth when I'm doing those. If I'm going to do even just one, that means I have to switch over for a quick second. I'm so used to doing that. But don't let that be the focus. I tell that especially to kids. Don't let the stick tricks be your #1 priority to practice. You're not going to get a gig just off of that. You know, it's the substance that matters, being able to make the music. And you can't see that stuff in the recording studio, right? So I appreciate you guys chiming in today. It's great. Oh, JH audio in-ear monitors. Yeah, that's what we use. Absolutely. Hey, my buddy Rocky is there. Aerosmith shows in Vegas. Are you in Vegas? Are you going to the show? I think they're just starting those this weekend. Maybe I'll catch a show. I heard it's a massive production because they don't have to take it on the road. They're in one place doing this residency. So it's like, it's high tech. So that's going to be a cool show if you can get to one of those Aerosmith shows in Vegas. So thank you guys. I got to get out of here. I got to get down to the studio. I almost did the live stream from the studio today, but I told you why. I was out so late last night. Had to figure out how to get home. But I will see you next week. And there's going to be a lot more good stuff coming. I'm going to have more specific topics to discuss. Real world stuff. Music biz unfiltered. That's what it's got to be. That's the only way I will do this kind of live stream, to give you the straight story. So I will see you guys later. Have a great week. Peace.